Question number 4, Metiria Turei.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, tēnā koutou e te whare. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he have confidence in all his ministers?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question. Order. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Would it not be wiser for him to reserve his decision regarding confidence in John Banks until after the courts have decided whether he has committed criminal fraud?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't have the luxury of doing that. The member asked me the question now.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the fact that Sky City CEO Nigel Morrison was a witness in John Banks' preliminary hearing and is likely to give evidence if there is a future criminal trial affect his confidence in John Banks' ability to make an objective decision about the NZICC Sky City bill?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'll kindly follow the member's advice. The matter's before the courts and I won't be discussing it.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Has the Prime Minister been advised in writing by John Banks that he has a potential conflict of interest in relation to the NZICC Sky City bill?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I can't recall getting a record of that, but I'd need to check my files.
Supplementary.
Order.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Will the Prime Minister require John Banks to formally advise him that a conflict exists, as the Cabinet Manual requires, given the Sky City CEO could be required to give evidence in court about John Banks, and the NZICC Sky City bill relies on John Banks' single vote to pass?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, look, the matter is before the courts and I don't intend to make any hypothetical assessment of it.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How can he consider that John Banks does not face a conflict of interest when the CEO of Sky City needs Mr Banks' single vote to ensure the casino secures a massive increase in business, while that same Sky City CEO is in court giving evidence that could sink John Banks' political career?
Right Honourable Prime
Mr
Minister.
Speaker, I don't accept the proposition from the member.
Supplementary. Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Point of order, actually, sir. Point of order.
Point of order, Metiria
Thank you,
Turei.
Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table a document produced for me by the Parliamentary Library identifying 2 members of Parliament who have abstained from voting because of conflict of interest, including one who did so over the casino.
If it's the voting record of this Parliament, then it's freely available to members.
Okay. Supplementary.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Does the Prime Minister have confidence in the Minister of Conservation, given his statement, quote, "I expect high standards from my ministers, and if they don't meet these standards, I said I will obviously take action if necessary," close quote. If it is proven that the Honourable Nick Smith's statements around the dates he was first briefed on the Ruataniwha Dam issue and submission from the Department of Conservation are incompatible with the truth, as evidenced by the Minister's own weekly reports, will he ask the Minister to resign?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
In answer to the first part of the question, I have confidence in the Minister.
Supplementary. Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Given his refusal to express confidence in his minister, is it within the high standards he expects of Minister Nick Smith to ensure that the minister has bent over backwards to get his department not to stand in the way of special interests making massive windfall gains from this partially publicly funded project?
Right, Honourable Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, my assessment of the Leader of the Opposition's portrayal of this event is very much like his regional stats. He's making it up.
Order. Order. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister seriously telling this House that he is genuinely unconcerned about allowing one of his ministers, who is dependent on the Sky City CEO, who could make or break that minister's political career, to have the deciding vote on a deal that is worth more than $400 million to the Sky City Casino? Is it of really no concern?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't accept the proposition from the member for the Sky City Convention Centre, which I understand these days the Labor Party is now supporting quietly.
Order. Question number 5, Brendan Horan. Order. Order. The level of noise coming from this particular quarter is getting to the stage when I will have no choice but to pick one of the noisiest and ask that person to leave.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Grant.
I might be able to help explain some of the noisiness because the Prime Minister's just making things up in his answers. Is what
Order. That is not a point of order, and the member will be very lucky to see the balance of question time.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, can you explain how the Prime Minister has responsibility for the Labor Party's policies, and if not, why that comment was within his...
That is not a point of order, and if the members continue raising invalid points of order, then if they continue to do that, I will be asking them to leave.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order. Point of order. Grant Robertson.
Mr. Speaker, I raise a point of order under Standing Order 3832 about the Prime Minister's last answer, where he included a matter that he is not responsible for, which was an entirely incorrect and not relevant to the question.
And I invite the member to go back and look at the question that was asked. It was a question with opinion.
Speaking to the point of order, Mr. Speaker.
No, I would. If it's a fresh point of order, I'll hear it. But if the member's now questioning my point of order, then I will be asking the member to leave. So, fresh point of order, I'll hear it, but I want to be quite clear.
Mr. Speaker, fresh point of order.
Fresh point of order, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance as to the difference between a ruling which says that a point of order is not a point of order and a ruling which says that a point of order on a matter like, for example, 383, is a point of order but one which you don't find meets your threshold. What's the difference?
The member is now questioning my ruling. I invited Grant Robertson, and I invite the member to have a look at his own Hansard. When a question is asked, it should equally be short, concise, but when it's asked and it includes quite a lot of additional prose, it will likely get a political answer back.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Is this a fresh point
Yes, it is,
of order?
Mr. Speaker.
In any way questioning my earlier rulings
Mr. Speaker,
order. Would the
it,
member resume his seat? If the member wants to raise a fresh point of order, I will hear it. But if it is any way questioning a decision I have just made in the last 5 minutes, then the member will be leaving the chamber.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Fresh point of order, Grant
Mr. Speaker, I raise a point of order under Standing Order 3832 and make clear that the answer that the Prime Minister was giving was to a question from Metiria Turei. It was not a question from this side of the House. The Prime Minister then introduced material that was irrelevant, and under Standing Order 3832, he was out of order and you should have ruled him out of order.
I accept the point that the supplementary question was to Metiria Turei. I equally now invite both the Honourable David Cunliffe and Grant Robertson to study that question. It was a very loaded question when it was asked, and it got a political answer back.
Order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Can I just clarify again? Order! This is a point of order, but I just want to give Mr. Cunliffe exactly the same warning that I gave Mr. Robertson. If it is in any way attempting to question, if it's a fresh point of order, I'll hear it. If it is in any way attempting to relitigate what I've just determined, then the member will be leaving for the balance of question time. Fresh point of order.
Clarifying the point.
No, I'm not accepting clarification of a
then
point.
Then I decline
have
to
ruled.
ask the point of order, Mr.
The member can certainly raise a point of order, but it must be a fresh point. Right. Question number 5, Brendan Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.